Hello, Rupa here from Crafters Corner. I'm back with another video tutorial. I know it's been quite a while since I posted one. Nevertheless, today we're going to have fun. We're going to play with some of the Cadence products and Dress My Craft, both coming together today. As for Cadence, we're going to be using their decoupage glue as always. And then I have these very chalky paints, which is, I'm not too sure about the colors as of now, but then I just have these with me, October Mist and Sandy Brown. Yes, brown is always my favorite. That's for the very chalky paints. And then I'm going to be using the finger wax, which is in gold from Cadence. And of course, my all-time favorite, the Dora Metallic paints, which is also from Cadence. And as we talk about Cadence, this is probably the products that I would be using. This is what I have in mind right now. As for Dress My Craft, today we're going to be using their lovely decoupage rice papers. Yes, now what is rice paper and what is tissue? As you all know, tissue is a very thin, the serving tissue kind of material which comes in a 3-ply. The most transparent when it comes to decoupage is the tissue. And then next in line would be the rice paper, okay, which is equally thin, but not as thin as the tissue. If you can see, this is also a bit transparent and takes on to whatever is your base color. So it's important that your base color is still light in this case, okay. And this one is the Victorian Queen metal rice paper. It's got some nice gold filigree work and some nice vintage images here. I love the color palette, which is very subtle. It's not too bright and on the face. Lovely pinks and greens. Yeah, the vintage shades. And then there is the which one is this? This is the Vintage Princess. This is another nice one. It's got a set of 4 pretty ladies. Yes, 4 pretty ladies here. You can see. Yeah, there you go. I think that's a better angle. Yeah, got some 4 pretty ladies. I think I'm going to be using one of these for my project today. And then there's, with the Valentine's having gone, there's one called Love is in the Air. This has a romantic couple amongst lovely flowers. Yeah, that's the one. They're all pretty much in the very vintage teal, pinks and brown shades. Very much my color palette. Okay, so today I think I should be using the vintage lady, or do you think I should be using this girl? With the project, maybe I'll have some clarity, but all I know is I'm going to alter a journal, an old diary, an unused journal that I have with me. This is what I'm going to alter today with the rice papers. As you know, it is a hard-bound paper. You can see it. So what I'm going to do is first cover this up with the very chalky paint. No need for gesso because these chalky paints are really thick, and maybe a coat or maximum 2. This is cardboard, so I guess just 1 coat will do. I'm going to cover this with the very chalky, which is the sandy brown. It's a nice light brown here. You can see the coverage. This chalky paint from Cadence is really chalky, very matte. 1 coat has so much coverage. I want you to see that. Okay, I've not given a primer beneath. This is straight away the chalk paints in front of you. So that's, I think I will stop with just 1 coat. That seems to be pretty okay because we're going to have layers coming up. And I'm not looking at any over bulky 3D embellishments on this. I want this to be a very usable journal which can slip into my handbag. I don't want anything falling off. Okay, so that's 1 coat of very chalky sandy brown on the front cover of the journal. I'm going to cover the back and the spine. Okay, there you go. That's how the coverage is. I'm going to cover the spine and the back and then come back. Okay, so here it is. I have covered the front, the back and the spine. This is just 1 coat. I'm not going to be too worried about the mild impression still being seen because we're going to have layers of paints and some techniques coming up. As for the rice paper that I'm going to use, I'm thinking I will use the lovely ladies. Maybe the lady in brown catches my fancy right now. So what I'm going to do is, I have this oval template with me. I just cut it off from a cardboard box. Okay, and I'm going to decoupage this brown princess. Okay, so for that I'm going to use the decoupage plus decoupage glue from Cadence. So what I'm going to do is apply the decoupage glue onto this oval frame. I'm not covering this up with any gesso or anything because this is white already. Okay, and what I'm going to do is place this young lady in such a way that I get the maximum out of it. Okay, so there you go. As you can see, this is a lovely print against a text background. Okay, so this is adhered really well to the cardboard. I'm going to seal it once from the top using the same decoupage glue. Doesn't she look lovely? Okay, so there it is. This is no rocket science. It's not as difficult as adhering a tissue. So what I'm going to do now is dry this and use a sandpaper to cut off the edges. Okay, so the lady has been decoupaged onto the oval frame, and I'm just using a bit of sandpaper to take off the overhangings here, the extra bit, and there you go. That's how she sits there. So what I'm thinking right now is to distress this a bit. So I'm going to use some inks. I'm going to use some archival inks. This is a nice brown shade, or rather maybe I should just distress it directly with the ink pad because I want it nice and brown around the edges, giving it a bit of distressing. Okay, so so that bit of distressing is over. Next, what I'm going to do is take a distressing tool and further distress the edges. If you don't have a distressing tool, you can use the end of your scissors. Do I have one here? Yeah, okay. So I have the scissors with me. So what you can do is just scrape the edges with the scissors. It will pretty much give you the same effect. Okay, so I know there's some joy of antiquing things in making it look really old. I enjoy doing that kind of a finish. Okay, I did notice that the edge is not stuck properly, so I have some decoupage glue here, and let me seal this. Okay, so since the edges are distressed now, what I'm going to do is take some finger wax. This is from Cadence and it's gold. The color is gold, nice and waxy. A little goes a long way. You can see this is really okay. So I'm now covering the edges with a little bit of gold distressed from the brown. Don't want too much. So you see that little bit of gold that comes through. Yeah, okay, I think that's enough. So the lady is ready to go on to the next step. The journal is here. I'm going to place her in the center, adhere her in the center. I'm going to use a normal glue to fix her here in the center, and then let's see what we do next. Alrighty, so I have her adhered onto the journal. Like I said, I don't want anything heavy or anything standing out of this journal because I want this to be really usable. So the next step is I'm going to cover the free space here which is there with something called as Antique Gesso from Cadence again. This is a textured gesso in a lovely color. This is a deep red and it's called Bordeaux. Okay, I've used this in my previous videos also. It's really grainy and sandy. Okay, so darken up the project right now. So you can choose to apply this with a spatula, with a brush, with your finger, whichever that you're comfortable with. Okay, because this is going to be a little raised, little thick, because it's got lovely grains. Do you see that? Okay, now I got to be careful that I don't spill anything on the lady. Okay, so I'm going to spread this. Excuse me about that sound. Like I said, this is really grainy. So that's the proof. So I'm going to have some textures here and there. I don't want it too much. The rest of the area, I think I'll go about spreading with a brush so that it's not too raised. Spreads evenly and the texture stays in place, rather than when you apply it with the spatula, you see a whole lot of it sitting. Yeah, so that's your choice how textured you want this to look. You could cover the whole thing with the texture, or if you want a little bit of color and the texture, then use a brush. Brightening up the project. Okay, I think there's a bit of excess, so I'm just putting it back in the jar. Like I said, I don't want too much popping up from this journal. Okay, I'm not doing anything to the back right now. This is just the front cover. I'm not even touching the spine here. Okay, so that's the Antique Gesso. I think the coverage is pretty good. Got some texture and color at the same time. Now what I need to do is dry this. I'm going to use a heat gun, dry this, and then come back. The Antique Gesso is dry. It's in fact very much dry now. Next step is I'm going to add a layer of wax or Vaseline, whatever that you have, on this Antique Gesso, and then give a top coat and then distress it to reveal a bit of the Antique Gesso. Okay, so this is not going to be the top color. Okay, it's not going to be so bright. So what we're going to do is, just so that we do a two-tone distressing with the Antique Gesso on the base and the chalk paint on the top, what we're going to do is create a resist in the next layer, for which you can use wax or Vaseline. I'm going to use both so that you see both the effects. So this is Vaseline, so you could apply the Vaseline here and there wherever you wish your base color to be seen. Just going to have a few pockets of Vaseline. I would prefer more of the wax. So now I take some white wax with me. You can rub a candle or any white wax that you have with you. Just rub it. This is, since the texture is there on the antique gesso. The high points of the texture will catch the wax. Okay, and then we will have some lovely distressed effects. Let's see how this is going. Okay, so that should do. I don't want too much also. So what I'm going to do next is get a nice dark brown color. I'm going to add a bit of black to the sandy brown and make it a little more darker brown. Okay, so I've mixed the color now. I've mixed a bit of black acrylic color to very chalky to get a little chocolatey brown color, and then we're going to spread the entire page with the dark brown color. Mind you, we have the wax and the Vaseline, so let's see what happens to that. Now I'm just going to cover randomly the entire front cover. In the shade, nevertheless we're going to do distressing, so a bit of that color will be seen. That's the idea. Look at the lovely sandy texture of that antique gesso. You could leave the antique gesso as your final finish if you like the bright colors and the texture. It's just that I wanted the brown on top and the red color to just peek through here and there, which is why I'm doing the brown color with the resist technique. Go ahead, experiment and use these colors the way you want. I'm sure you can come up with something different too. So that's the brown sitting here. I'm going to dry it. Here's what I did off camera. I dried the front cover after applying the brown, and then the back too got a coat of the brown color, so did the spine. Okay, so now this is dry. As you can see, where I've applied Vaseline, it's little dark and glossy. That's because the resist, the Vaseline has mixed with the paint, and there is a resist right now. So what we need to do is distress the same. You could use a sandpaper to do the distressing, or you could use a scraper to scrape out that top layer. Since there is the Vaseline, what will happen is the top layer of the paint would come to reveal a bit of the color which is on the base. Do you see that? Yeah. So that's a peek of what's going on underneath. So it doesn't go up to the light brown layer. Scrape in carefully so that you don't remove too much of the texture. Okay, so yeah, you need to remember where you did the wax and the Vaseline. Okay, so I'm just slightly scraping. I can see it does remain a little glossy wherever you applied the wax or the Vaseline. Okay, so there you go. I'm just removing that. Gives a nice grungy look. Yes, this is a messy technique there. You got to be gentle because this is not wood. We're working on a journal cover, so if I just go deep into it, I probably would tear off the cover. So I got to be careful here. Mind you, this technique works on all surfaces, whether you're working on wood or metal or a notebook cover like this. The distressing technique is the same. Just remember the surface that you're working on, and your pressure to do the distressing depends on that. Okay, so I am just lightly dusting the chip offs, whatever has come off from the scraping, and there you go. That's okay, that's quite a mess. Okay, so there you go. That's how the chippy effect on the top layer looks. Now that's really worn out and distressed. No amount of distressing is enough for me. I could just go on distressing and giving it a vintage look as much as I want. So what are we going to do next is I want to give some golden highlights here and there, and then further distress it with black. So for the gold, I have the Dora metallic paints, again in gold. Okay, so I want to do some stenciling here and there random. We have the silver gold and the gold. I'm not sure which is going to pop, so I'm going to use both the colors. And for the stenciling, we need a stencil brush. Okay, without a stencil brush, it's going to be very difficult to do the stenciling. So I have the small stencil brush here, and then let's, okay, so we have the dark and light. Mind you, this is a textured surface. It's not going to be a crisp, crystal clear stenciling because we have the texture beneath. So take some paint on the brush, take off the excess, and just go about. This works like butter. This is my all-time favorite from Cadence, the Dora metallic paint. Okay, that's the silver gold. Now I'm just going to take a bit of the gold, antique gold, and do just the edges. And there you go. That's what it is there. And I'm thinking I will do a similar work down. I have this stencil from Cadence, which is the home decor stencil, and this flourish is there down. So I'm thinking I will do, can you see me? So that's the flourish. Okay, I'm going to do that. For the bottom part. Vintage old book. I don't want to make it very clear and bright. So let's have some random gold work here and there. So I could use this corner design. Yeah, there you go. This is perfect. Enough. Maybe I could highlight some of the spine here too. So you can use the finger wax too. Yeah, why did I forget that? For the edge distressing, I could always use the finger wax for the edges. So this is just that bit which is left over that I'm buying. Okay, so let's come to some black distressing. So you need a nice dry brush for that. Okay, and some black acrylic paint. And let's get started with some distressing. I have some acrylic paint with me. Loading the brush with black. Okay, dusting off the extra and going in gentle sweeps. So just basically distressing the edges of the book cover, not too much. The idea is to just give it a nice distressed look, like it's been around for some time. Okay, I'm done with the dry brushing, and like I said, just want that little bit of antique touch to it. So once you're done with the gold distressing and the black distressing, this is how the cover looks. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is maybe the edges, I could come around the edges with the gold finger wax. This is a brighter gold, but when it comes next to the browns and the blacks, it is not as bright. We don't want to drift away from the antique look, so I don't want to really pep it up with brightness here. It's not what I want. Okay, so that's the distressing of finger wax. Let me do that to the back also. Many of you asked me how I do stenciling. So I'm going to show you a bit on the back cover how you can do stenciling without the colors smudging. Like I've always said that for me stenciling works best with a stencil brush. So I don't spounce or use a sponge for the same. It's just the stencil brush and you just go in swift circular motions. I'll just show you in a bit. Stenciling a large area, my hand always reaches out to this jumbo stencil from Cadence again, the home decor one. Okay, and I have the stencil brush with me. And the idea is to go in nice swift circular motion, a steady hold on the brush, and then you just go. If you can see this Dora metallic paint, I just took a bit, took off the excess, and look at the coverage, there's so much, it's still going on. And mind you, I don't want too much of the gold also, I just want a bit peeking here and there. It's an old book, that's what we're trying to recreate here, not a new book. So I'm doing some more at the lower end, not kept it too much. Okay, so we're pretty much done with this journal. That is all that I want. So we've used the antique gesso, we've used chalk paints, we've used finger wax, and then we've used the rice papers from Cadence, top coat with the chalk paint and then scraping it off, which gives a lovely distressed effect yet maintains the texture, if you can see. And especially when you do the dry brushing, it just picks up the texture from the antique gesso, just picks up the paint. So that's the project. And what am I going to do with this journal? Yes, of course I'm going to use it. You will see some pictures in the end. I'm just planning to do a vintage stack of books kind of decor, for which I have prepped up a few more old books. This book here that you see was a Nancy Drew book, which I have decoupaged. Again, I have used the chalk paints from Cadence, and I have decoupaged the tissue, done some printing and all that, and given this a very vintage look. Next was another old book, which was hardbound. So again, I've used, I think for this I've used the October Mist chalky paint from Cadence, and then used a black and white printed tissue. Okay, and this one says grateful, and that one, now I remember what I need to do. Okay, so this one says thankful, and then the last layer was another bound book, which I have just stenciled, used chalk paints, same home decor stencil from Cadence, and this one says life is good. So this one comes in between, for which I have stamped blessed onto this white tissue paper, and I'm thinking of decoupaging the same to the spine. Okay, so let's do that. So what you need to do is, I've used archival inks here to stamp this, and these are some old stamps from my stash, because I realized there was no alphabet which was just fitting in there in the spine to stencil. So I decided stamping would be a good idea. Glue and then decoupaging it from the top. So the tissue just blends into the background and reveals the stamping. So let me dry that. Is now to stack them up. The idea is to stack all these books together and then make a vintage stack of books kind of decor. I shall post some pictures in the end. Have a look. That's pretty much the project for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Do leave your comments, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be back with more tutorials soon. Bye bye.